Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we have a look at the 1998 film Practical Magic. This is episode 413, and it's the start of a number of movies that we're going to do that are just around witchcraft. And I'm not even sure that we've entirely picked what the other movies are going to be, but it's going to be a fun way of leading into spooky season some more. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, which you can find at Global Comics. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Also a Dracula cowboy, but not of the creepy, abusive variety.
Dracula Cowboy is I love that Dracula Cowboy listens to a lot of Elvis. That's hilarious too. In Los Angeles, Adam Foshko has worked on some of the most successful interactive franchises of all time, whether it's Call of Duty, Destiny, Skylanders, Shrek, Transformers, Diablo, or James Bond. Adam's work with these stories, characters, and worlds has helped to set them apart and continues to delight millions. Say hello.
Hi, how's it going tonight?
It is fantastic. Fantastic. We have, as we started recording, heard that the WGA strike is not over, but an agreement has been reached. So the end is in sight, and it's a really, really big night. Picketing is over, and that's a big deal. That is a big, big deal. People can go picket with the actors, which is great. So that's how good it's going. All right. Also in Austin, lead singer / bassist for Austin's rockabilly riot girl band Danger Cakes, and upright bassist for the Queer Grass Americana outfit Brand New Key, Jamie Bahr is the former executive director of the nonprofit organization Girls Rock Austin. Say hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Hello. It's so great to hear your voice again. I think the last time we did this was Candyman, and which was cool and awesome, and it's cool to have you back.
Nice to be back.
Thank you. And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from Julia Guzman, the woman who, in a recent review of the show, somebody said appears to be doing the show out of marital obligation. Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello, welcome back to our special guests, and yay about the writer strike being almost over. Hopefully,
Are you doing this show out of marital obligation, or is it become something else by now?
I thought you were going to say yay marital obligation.
At this point it was. I don't know that it was ever obligation per se. I think it was definitely, like part of wanting to have a thing that I shared with Jason in addition to our kids and whatever else we were doing at the time, 11, 12 years ago, whatever long that was. But yes, it's definitely more than that at this point.
Yeah, we were in the mountains today. We were on a train in the mountains, and we were like, we got to get back to Denver because we got to record a show. And so that's what our life is like. We're hurrying along, holding our hats to our heads, and getting back to the studio.
We took a lovely train ride.
Yeah, it was great. It was lovely. Yeah, looked at the fall foliage. Some of it. A lot of the leaves have not quite turned yet. All right. Practical Magic. Gosh, Practical Magic is a 1998 American fantasy romantic drama film. That's what Wikipedia says, because it also doesn't know what to call this movie. Based on the 1995 novel of the same name by Alice Hoffman. It was directed by Griffin Dunn, the zombie friend from American Werewolf in London. It has a heck of a cast. Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman, Stockard Channing, Diane Wiest, Aidan Quinn, Goran Visnyak. The Bullock and Kidman play sisters, Sally and Jilly Owens, descended from a long line of witches raised by their aunts after their parents' death from a family curse. The sisters were taught the uses of practical magic as they grew up, and as adults, they must use their magic to destroy an evil spirit before it kills them. This I think, I don't remember who recommended this. Drew said, let's do a series of magic movies. I'm not sure how this film came up, but I'm so excited to be talking about it.
When I said witch movies, I was thinking more like, witch based, like probably old witchcraft based movies, like maybe The Haunted Palace or
like
something
the Black
like
Cat.
that.
Oh yeah, or the Haunted Palace.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like so. don't think that I was the one that hit, like, because if we were going to do a 90s witch
It was
movie,
either Jason or me, but I can't remember which one of us.
I am famously
yeah. I mean, I'm
good at-
delighted to talk about it. This isn't a complaint. I just this is an inspired choice, but I don't want to take credit for it.
Well, I'm famous for fucking up the assignment, so it's very possible that I was like, "Oh, witches, well, Sandra Bullock, obviously." So and just like let's do it because this and the craft.
Like Nicole Kidman's been a witch twice.
Oh, is that so? What was
Yeah.
the other witchy Nicole
Bewitched.
Kidman?
She's in Bewitched.
Oh, of course, right? No, that's for real. Yeah, but I mean, any excuse to go back to the '90s, I'm all there. Okay. Let's get our opening thoughts. Joya, Drew, Adam, and we'll let Jamie round us out. I'm not going to have any opening thoughts. We'll just go into the topic. So starting, Joya, real quick, give us your opening thoughts on Practical Magic.
I really enjoyed this movie. I love the cast. I have a crush on at least 2, possibly 3 of the guys in this cast, as well as a few of the women. So yes, I was just a big Goran Visnyak fan from Grey's
Sure.
Anatomy, and a huge Aidan Quinn fan from Benny and June, and Desperately Seeking Susan, all the other things. So I was very happy.
I know he was on ER too, right?
ER. It's ER. You're right. I get my doctor shows mixed up. Thank you for straightening me out. Yes. Yeah, Kovac is Kovac. Doesn't matter where he is. He stands alone. Anyway, yes. And so I love the cast. I think it's great. I think all the women are fantastic. I love the aunties and their relationship with the sisters and with with Sandra Bullock's daughters, Sally Owen's daughters. It's neat. It's fun. Like Jason said, it's not all over the place in like a chaos way. It's just it definitely struggles to figure out what it's trying to be. Is it a comedy? Is it a rom-com? Is it a spooky film? What is it? But I enjoy all the things that it is. So
wow, nicely said. That's I like that. Yeah, I enjoy all the things it is. Yes. Drew, what about you?
So despite this being part of the sort of holy trilogy of 90s witch movies with like Hocus Pocus, The Craft, and this movie kind of rounding it out, I actually had never seen this film until relatively recently. Jamie and I watched it for the first, I watched it for the first time a few months ago, even though it seems to be a bit of a cult classic to a lot of people. I do really think it's a fun little time capsule of the 1990s. I think that's probably first and foremost what I get out of it. I don't think it's perfect. As Julia said, it is all over the place, and I don't think the movie really gets started until they kill Nicole Kidman's boyfriend and then bring him back to life. Like, I think the first part of the movie, unfortunately, there's like a lot of it seems like there probably was a much longer version of this movie. Like, it seems like there's like a whole bunch of stuff left on the cutting room floor, and they're like, we don't need to actually show that stuff. We'll just do, some pop music, which will tell you how to feel. And like, that stuff actually kind of bugs me. But once the movie like gets going into high gear, I actually think it's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Love it. Thank you. Adam, what about you?
Well, I also hadn't really seen this picture somehow in the 90s. It's just surprising because I feel like I saw all pictures in the 90s. But this may be one of those things that, I think as we were following Sandra Bullock, it's like, oh, she's in Demolition Man, oh, she's in whatever she's in. And it's like, I don't know if I want to see Sandra Bullock in this movie. I think maybe I just skipped it, even though big Diane Wiest fan. Somehow I think this was just off my radar in the 90s. Having said that, treating it as a pastiche or something for the 90s, I think is a terrific way into this movie. And I had, after seeing possibly one of the worst trailers I've ever seen for a movie, I was like, I don't know what to make of this. But I have to tell you, I think it just goes hand in hand with the fact that I'm not sure the studio knew what to make of this. But having seen it, I got to say that I really did enjoy it. And actually, like Drew, I think the idea was there's a lot of stuff in the beginning. And I'm pretty sure there was a big problem and probably even a long discussion about what's the public going to make of witches, witchcraft, and how does the lore work, and whatever. It's like, it's fine, put some music in, it'll be great. There's some kind of tug of war going on there, and once the story gets rolling, it's actually really good. It's mostly just fun to think about when this film was made and follow it and not think too desperately hard about it. And the chemistry between them is terrific. So it's kind of just a fun movie in a way that I just don't think it was nearly as fun as that in the 90s. Probably it's more fun to see it now and look back on that.
Oh,
I think.
interesting.
So that's just my view.
That's wonderful. Jamie, it sounds like you introduced this movie to Drew, so I assume this is this a favorite of yours?
Oh, I used to love this movie. I was 15 when this movie came out, and I feel like it was like totally directed at me, like me specifically, as a little goth girl in New England and upstate New York, and it was. I always loved Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. Separately they were awesome, and together they're great. And I just thought that this was a movie that really it is all over the place. Like I will say, I agree with everyone's statement on that. You're going from like the beginning of like Salem witch trial times to modern day, and go through what seems to be like the 60s and I say modern day 90s. But it's it has everything that a movie about women I guess should have. It has, I mean, although I guess there's so many things that we could touch upon, but like I said, I'll save it for the actual podcast. But it does have so many of the quintessential archetypes of like women and their types of relationships that they have with each other, and the fact that we are encouraged to support women, and we're each other's friends and sisters, mothers, but it's also we can be each other's villains. And there's a moment through this movie where that it talks about that. I feel like not talks about it specifically, but it shows that graphically without kind of laying into well, I say laying, I don't know how to put it better. I'm all over the place myself. I think it has everything from the a longing for a mother-daughter relationships, but aunts and nieces, and the there's domestic violence, there's um, people chastising people for their belief systems, and it's just like I said, it's messy. It is very messy. The way that it's like kind of structured together, especially like the first half of the movie. But if you stay with it, it's kind of got what I like to say is almost like storytale pacing, or fairy tale pacing, where it's kind of like you don't really get too involved with the characters as they're younger, and you're immediately like just supposed to like identify with them, and you have your favorite, and which one do you identify with, and it just goes on from there. So
That's wonderful. Actually, so I will say this. I just want to point out, I love how all over the place this movie is, because I know that there are rules and I know we're supposed to conform to them. But some of my favorite movies on the planet are just weird and mix and match, and like, it's totally true that this movie, the main story doesn't really get going until about the middle. And I think if you were following a contemporary form and structure, you would kind of set up most of the Goran Vizniak stuff like towards the first half hour instead of like towards the second half of the film. And but it's fine, because I just sort of want to live in this movie, and I don't care. Like, let it be a million different things. It works for me, and I know that you guys feel much the same way too. We're just all making that observation because it's abundantly clear that this is a weird duck, but I do like how weird it is. So let's get into it. The first thing that we were kind of talking about before, that I think is a place to bring a lot of topics off of, is that unlike a lot of movies of 25 years ago when this movie came out, and honestly, unlike a lot of movies today, this film like centers women. Most of the intimacy is between, and I mean just closeness. Most of the intimacy is between women. The fighting, the sniping, the love, most of the roles are women with just a couple of guys who are in there, and that is really surprising. I mean, was anybody struck by that as you were watching it, going, how come there aren't like 9 other movies like this?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like well, I say that, but there are a lot of movies in the 90s that actually did have a good cast of women. Uh, and a lot of them were based on, witches.
Yeah.
uh, but I always loved, Circle of Friends was also a Minnie Driver movie at this
Hmm.
time. I think that was a
Is that a witch
couple.
movie?
No, but it's an Irish movie. It has Chris O'Donnell in it, and it takes place in Ireland. But that was one of another movie that was like I said, timely to this point and had a really strong cast of women. And uh, but obviously we think of like The Craft and the movie Witches. The Witches, and I don't know. I think there was a good time in the 90s where people were trying to have stronger women leads and putting them in roles where women's issues were the focus.
Mm. It's strange that I mean, obviously rom-coms were having their heyday in the 90s, right? And that, in theory, the marketing idea there was you'd have a film that would appeal to women who would influence the men that they were with to come and watch the movie with them, as a thing to do together. And that was understood to be a genre that was distinctly appealing to women. And it's also understood now that that genre has morphed and kind of gone away and reinvented itself for television and done other stuff like that, and it hasn't been driving films. It's weird to me that we had this and then we don't have this anymore. That's just strange, like, I would, again, I'm a man, this movie's not aimed at me, but I would watch a bunch more movies just like this if you told me they existed. Like, this is really, really neat. I do have a question though. For those of you who can put on the hat of talking to me as American women, what's the deal with conga lines and
Wait, are
kitchens?
you the American women or are we
No,
the
no.
American?
I'm a stranger in a strange land. I'm just asking, conga lines and kitchens, was there a focus group that said, yeah, we like this? Like, is that why that happens all the time in these movies, or did anybody like it? Was it goofy when
I think
like,
it's delightful
Yeah.
because the idea, it's really wholesome. It's the idea that No, it's the idea that, I mean, these people they're having fun. Food and wine and drink is always associated with celebration. Music and
yeah.
dance is associated with celebration. And then the kitchen is like wholesomeness and creativity. So I think it's great.
But
No,
also
I didn't.
togetherness.
You
There's
never
like
had
I
a
would
I mean, that's
look at Big Chill. Didn't this happen in Big Chill as well? If you go back to
Yeah, they
Big
did.
Chill,
They sang like Motown in the kitchen as they're cooking. And in this movie, they conga line in the kitchen. There's also a point where everybody's dancing to Marvin Gaye in the bedroom. So there's a lot of like familial, like, just
Adam, Jason, I had no idea that you were American women.
right.
you said
You're right.
if we could
I
speak
didn't ask for
I
my own.
put
American women.
myself on mute and was going to let Jamie and Julia talk,
Oh
but
yeah. You're right. You're
by
right.
all
You're right.
means.
I'm pitching from the side, so for me,
Yes,
it's
yes,
like
yes.
I just didn't want that earlier film to sort of go unmentioned.
That's a good
So
point.
this
Good
is
point. So this is a
continue.
thing that resonates. In other words, Julia.
Oh yeah, I totally have been in multiple conga lines in a kitchen. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's usually either margaritas or pina coladas.
That
That
makes
Well,
me
I
was
so
haven't,
happy.
but my life
oh,
has been more empty for it. So.
Yeah.
oh.
We used to dance in the kitchen all the time, though, with the girls when they were
Yeah,
little.
yeah, yeah. No, we
Yeah,
would dance around, and then I would say to Jason, "You realize we're dancing in the kitchen."
that's true.
Because he would always make fun of that.
That's true. Yeah. Well, okay. That
It's a
tells me as a
gathering place
writer.
and as this is a movie about witches, so much like spells and potions. Like I personally consider myself like a kitchen witch, and
Mm,
that's where you put your intentions into the foods that you make, and that's it is a gathering place. Like, as much as like when we have people over, you want everybody to sit and hang out in your living room and talk, but where do they always congregate? In the kitchen while you're
mm,
finishing everything.
yeah,
For sure.
It's
yeah. So while we're still on thank you for answering my question, because I know it was a side note, but I've always been real curious, and now I know as a writer, use it, even if I'm not, even if it's not necessarily the thing that talks to me, it might talk to the audience. So that makes sense. Jamie, you were talking about this thing about how with this film centering women play all the roles too, including the women of the community who don't trust these sort of forever outsiders, the two sisters, and also in the
anyway.
end are kind of part of their community anyway.
Yeah, they very much are a part of the community. They're always there when people have like weird issues. They say like the aunties were all about helping people in their love lives,
Yeah,
and Sally is about providing you know salves and bath bombs and
yeah, that's right.
other like
Oh
holistic
yeah,
type.
everybody comes to get their spells.
Yeah,
That they
One thing
yeah,
I wish that they would have followed up on was what happened with the woman who came to see the aunties about wanting the married man to
fall in love.
want her so badly he couldn't stand it. And I was for sure they were going to come back to that story and have it be like where she's like, never mind, he's all over me all the time, or he killed himself or whatever, something, but nothing
yeah.
came of it. I was like, there's something, surely some lessons going to be learned here.
That
No.
that might be a classic. Who knows? Cutting room floor, early draft. Got to read the book. Who knows? this it's so interesting. It just occurred to me, by the way, that Steel Magnolias is also in this era when, and the men in that movie are pure window dressing. They are plot devices that are moving the plot along, that cause people, like, it's somebody that is going to be married, it's somebody who is a father who's got to be avoided. They're not centered, and this is just like that. It's just so refreshing. Like, it's really cool for me to watch this again. It feels like I'm watching a travelogue, and I'm really excited by this vision. So, all right, we can come back to that, but we should talk about the amazing cast that is here. Julia, this is Sandra Bullock at the height of her powers, right? I mean,
Well,
I mean,
she's
I'm,
still
she's very powerful. Yeah,
yeah,
she has never lost it. I think this is what she starts, maybe being the it girl, but she's been great ever forever, and so does Nicole Kidman for that matter. But yeah, they're just both so great at what they're doing. Like Sandra Bullock is so great at the just, trying to balance being a powerful witch with being a mom and being a lover and being a wholesome, like she's trying to fit in. And actually, there's I don't mean I don't want to sidetrack us to Barbie, but there's a monologue in Barbie that America Ferris does, and I want to memorize it. If I ever audition for something, I'm using it because it talks about all the things that women are expected to be and how they can never be all the things because they're all completely completely what's the word for when you have something that's like dichotomies, but not dichotomy. What's the word? I don't know. But the point is that everything is,
Contradictory?
basically they're all contradictory terms. And so that's the thing here. It's like she wants to fit in, but she can't because she's got these gifts, but she doesn't want to embrace the gifts. But when she does embrace, it just kind of goes back. So she's trying to be all the things. And I think it's fantastic. She's so good at playing that part. And then of course Nicole Kidman is just as sexy as can be, and she just finished shooting Eyes Wide Shut, so she was in her.
mm,
Speaking of height of her powers, like the height of her sexual power, where
yeah.
she's just uber sexy. So yeah, I think they're both great, and then of course the aunties Stockard Channing and Diane Weiss are just so delightful and wonderful.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I was gonna say, I just have to. I was like, this is something that's totally gross and crass. I don't know if we want to say it or not, but
Oh,
it's just something.
go for it. Yes.
Okay. It's like, like I said, I was 15 when this movie came out, and I thought Nicole Kidman was just like the classiest and like sexy. Like she was just like so awesome. And I remember wanting to be like, and I, a 5'2" Irish girl, she's not and well, I was 5'2" then, but I'm almost 5'7" now. But I never looked anything like Nicole Kidman, and I remember thinking, and that was what the ideal was, and everybody trying to look like her. And I remember thinking, or saying that to my mom all the time, like, "Oh my gosh, mom, Nicole Kidman like wouldn't wear this. I would wear this, blah blah blah." And my mom, she hasn't said it in a long time, but anytime you say something and you feel like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed, and she would say even sorry, I can't even say it now, even Nicole Kidman gets diarrhea sometimes, Jamie. And that was her like go-to to like humanize Nicole
Yes.
Kidman. And it's hard to think of that all the time. But I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have shared that.
No, but it is sometimes.
I
It's good
remember
to remind
watching this
yourself.
movie and thinking that, and like, she's wearing all the midriffs and being like, I'm gonna wear a midriff. My mom was like, the hell you are. It's like that, this movie brings up so many like nostalgic memories for me. So
But you make a good point that even now at the age that I'm at, which I'm not going to say what it is, but I am watching this body shaming myself the whole time, going, man, I want to look like that. It's like, no, that's not. I'm never going to
never.
look like that. I could never have looked like that, and I could never. But she still looks like that is the problem. So you kind of
I
like look
watched
at her
this
and go,
movie with
this
you,
is the ideal.
and you
Yeah.
were hot then, and you're hot now.
Aw,
We've
good
had it's
hubby.
been that
Also,
was
not everybody wants Nicole Kidman.
right.
It's true.
Right, but
Taste
it's
taste
not necessarily
vary.
about what other people want. It's about what
No.
you
No, and
personally feel like
Right.
I
this should be.
understand that.
Yeah.
But like I do think that often, when you see a movie star, and everybody in the movie is reacting to her like, oh, she's so sexy, like it is important to realize that a casting director decided that she was sexy, so
Right.
that
Yeah.
was part of that's the casting director's taste being represented there. That's not everybody in the world, because tastes are all over the place.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Do
you
you
for saying that.
guys think it's weird, or maybe weird's the wrong word, but I just think it's remarkable, I suppose, that you've got these two women who are both traditionally attractive Hollywood casted acting women, and they are playing sort of mirror images of one another. How one is both of them very conventionally skinny, by the way, but other than that, one is a sort of traditionally mom, wearing very sort of tidy, respectable clothes. The other smoking, drinking different kinds of alcohol from the acceptable kinds that the nice people drink, and smoking cigarettes, and dressing. There's a Madonna whore thing going on right here. That
Well,
that
on TV tropes, they would say, as a Betty and a Veronica. But what's interesting is the Veronica type is actually the one with the lighter hair, and
That's
the
true. That's right.
Betty type has the dark hair.
Yes. Yeah. It's fiery hair. It's the redhead is and I don't know. I think the director would probably get mad at me for being so crass with that, because he'd go, it's more subtle than that. But is it? Like to some extent, like Nicole Kidman's character just oozes dangerous sexuality, and I think the insinuation we're meant to get is sort of like in like Water for Chocolate, that she always has, that's always been her her style. But anyway, so I'm sorry, I said that I would be a moderator and not actually talk, and I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. So
I don't know why you wouldn't talk. I don't understand. I mean, I don't get it.
well, I'll do my best. Anyway, if anybody else wants to go after the whore Madonna thing, I would be.
I was about to say I would like to hear more from Adam, but I didn't, not necessarily specifically about that topic. It's up to him.
But that's cool. Oh, go ahead.
He's like, no, I'm not. Not touching that one.
I want to state that when I jostled you guys earlier, I didn't mean I never wanted to hear from you for the rest of the podcast. I saw an opening for a joke, and I went for it. But
Sure.
I hope that wasn't interpreted as Jason and Adam shut up for the rest of the podcast.
Oh God, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I mean, you guys
Okay.
are going down a particular path that I think is, I think you're illuminating. I think that's important. I want to kind of hear the rest of it come out.
Yeah.
So now that we're the Madonna whore part, then we can kind of probably move on to something else. But
Yeah.
generally, I think we were on the right track. So I wanted to hear. I wasn't putting myself on mute purposely. I wanted to hear the rest of what you had to say about this. So don't worry, no worries, Drew. Believe me, it's fine.
All right. So so there's Sandra Bullock, there's Nicole Kidman. Adam said that Diane Wiest is a favorite. Diane Wiest,
I love her
because the two ants were Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest. Both of those are people who, like, my mother was obsessed with Stockard Channing, like in an I want to be her kind of way, right? I mean, one presumes, who knows? But
everybody who watched Grease was obsessed with Stockard.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was probably it for the majority of people that certainly I think around the time of Grease. Yeah,
she was the height of cool, and so as she moved into her middle age, she stayed cool. Like, she always remained. So she just became sort of your I guess your cool aunt. It's sad to me that we don't live in a universe where Stockard Channing could still be leading a romantic comedy. I would have gladly watched a romantic comedy about 50-year-old Stockard Channing dating, but that's not where we landed. We instead land with Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest as these two, funny aunts who say lots of silly stuff to kids and are wonderful and sweet, and also
very Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, I had not thought of that. Is this element in the book? I mean, I'll have to read the book to figure this out.
I think that's a question, right? It's like, how closely does this, does that fit the book? Because you saying Sabrina the Teenage Witch, we know what that means. Through its various iterations, because that goes all the way back to I think the 80s, maybe even.
There's the TV series in the 90s, right? But
right,
which I don't remember.
But I think there was a touch of it. I want to say it was in the 80s, but there was something about it in the 80s. But I mean, through the animated show, through the live action version, or maybe a couple different live action versions, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think that it's whether it existed in the book, or whether it's a thing that they brought forward in this production because it felt like that was a touchstone that people could kind of get behind if they hadn't read the book. And I wish I knew more about the book to put that into some kind of perspective. But it's a good point, Drew. It is very much that. Also, in the way that it's interesting that this handles darkness in a way that is good and interesting, and it makes it. I mean, there's a funness to it, and a sort of, it raises the level of the subject matter and the drama of it, and really just the story that I think otherwise, maybe it's done on a different time or done with a different cast, might have been different. It might not have been nearly as good, but this was a very intentional picture, I think, that's been made. And to actually have a broad appeal too. So maybe that's another reason why there's so many aspects that we can't quite nail down this movie. There's so much to it, whether it's something that is more of a romantic kind of the romance with the lawman, or whether it's the supernatural plot, or whether it's sort of a family coming of age, everyday witches, cozy and fun kind of story. I don't know, but it's a bunch of things to be put together.
I would gladly give up Aidan Quinn. I would give up Aidan Quinn in exchange for keeping the ants. If it came down to like
sure.
If you had to pick, I would just have this be the ants and the sister.
Well, the problem is if you get rid of Aidan Quinn, you lose the topic of the curse in the entire second half of the movie. And
you're so right. Yes.
that would bug me. Like
No, you're right. Yeah.
I don't want to, like, I feel like over the last 2 years, I feel like I've become like the person that's jackbooted about story structure, and which is weird because I'm the one that doesn't have any formal writing training on the show, but like it bugs me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie having too much going on, is that you can't get rid of Aidan Quinn because he's integral to her love story, but it doesn't have to be a rom-com. Like, it doesn't. So if you got rid of like kind of the rom-com aspect, because he's not really the key. I mean, the fact is, with Goran Visnyak being, the bad guy, Cowboy Dracula,
Yeah.
that's enough. Like, you didn't need. I love Aidan Quinn, and I would love to see that story developed more between him and Sandra Bullock. But it doesn't have to be in with all these other elements.
Yeah.
I definitely think the zombie / ghost of the abusive boyfriend is the most interesting plot.
Jimmy
Like,
and Angelov.
yeah. Although, like, I on my second time watching this, and I, perhaps this is me being too hoity-toity liberal about things, but I started to think about how there is this whole trope in fiction, and it's not just this movie. And I even said this to Jamie
I'm already
last night
excited
when
by
we were-
wherever the hell you're going with this. Yeah, please go
So
ahead.
there's
Yeah.
this trope of a guy that is abusive, or in this case, potentially a serial killer, actually. But a guy that is abusive, but he's also sexy.
Yes.
And I even you talking about dangerous sexuality, like that
Yes.
whole thing. And look, I'm not saying that this does not occur in real life. I'm not saying that, I don't even really know where I come down on this as a topic, but I did find myself saying to Jamie, like, is this something that we should keep going back to? Like, are we setting ourselves up as a society to fall for people that are bad for us because movies have been telling us that they're better in the sack? Like,
but that's always been the case with the fact that I actually really love that he's called Cowboy Dracula, because that's always been the case with Dracula. Dracula has always been dangerously sexy, and the fact is they even make him Dracula to the point where there's a cross, except in this case it's a star that will burn him because of how much the good guy, the knight in shining armor,
man of the
believes
law.
in it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the flip side. And I think if, I'm just guessing, but it appears to me the audience wants to commune with one another and say, sometimes you want Aidan Quinn and sometimes you want Goran Visnyak. And we could call those mistakes or we could call them not mistakes, but they're feelings, and they should be explored. All of these are aspects of a human being in a sense. Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock aren't real characters. They are split versions of the same thing, and they are each attracted to things that complete them.
I disagree. I think they're very much real characters. I think that this is what the movie. This is why the movie's all over the place, because they really wanted to tell that story that you just described, where we want all these different things and we're all these different people, but then they also need to tell the story of, but really what matters is your relationship with your sister, and really what matters is the aunts and family, and really what matters is being a mom, and like all the things. It's like, you guys need to focus. get back to the plot.
Did you guys think it was funny? Jamie was alluding earlier to the strength of the women of the community gathering together because they are protecting one another. I love the fact that that this movie, being what this movie is, its version of the exorcism is an anti-man exorcism that's going to be attended by all the women of the community who can band together because they may agree about nothing else, but they do agree that some men are dangerous, if sexy. And that's and that's
he's less sexy in his undead state, though.
True. Yeah, and by that point he has just completely he he has taken over Nicole Kidman. He's made her disappear, and that's what a wonderful vision that is, right? Where when you think of unhealthy habits and addictions and whatever, what do? They make our loved ones disappear and replace. They sort of destroy our loved one from the inside until all that is just a shell that is
Well, and he
filled with
affects
their
everyone
needs.
in the family. Like to your point,
Yeah,
when there's
Okay,
something
so
like that, we've talked a lot about how addiction metaphors in horror or in whatever this is. I guess it's kind of horror.
I
yeah,
would
Um,
I would say it is at the very least a fantasy film.
yeah,
If we're gonna try and nail it down to a
it's horror.
particular
Yeah,
genre,
but
like
anyway,
young adult
it's at
horror.
least horror. It's at least horror adjacent.
what I was going to
yeah,
say though is he affects Nicole Kidman. He takes her over, like you're saying, but also he affects everyone else. Like I think my favorite thing in this whole movie is the scene where, and they're all really drunk in real life, which is hilarious. But the aunts and the sisters are all drunk, and all of a sudden the aunts start singing, "You were always on my mind."
neat.
That's the song that Goran Visnyak was singing, and you just get chills. Like it's so freaking creepy, and they realize that
Yes,
they're drinking the alcohol that he would always drink, and it was like holy shit. So he affects them. He affects the daughter who sees him. Like she sees him even though the sisters don't. See his ghost next to the
yeah.
roses. So it just like with addiction or with any other kind of toxicity, it's not just affecting the one person; it's impacting everyone around them too.
Yeah. I by the way, if there is a reboot of this movie or a weird legacy sequel of this film, you know in your heart that when that trailer comes on, they're going to do a weird ass choral version of You Were Always on My Mind. I'm
You
telling
could
you,
totally do a reboot slash sequel of this. Like you could bring back Rachel Evanwood now that she's an adult,
yeah,
and you could
absolutely.
have
Now that she's Rachel, what is it? Who is it? It's who plays her? I'm so sorry. I'm
The
thinking about
young the daughter
Kylie. I'm talking
from
about. All
No,
right.
that's what
Anyway,
you just
continue your
said.
thought.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what
actually,
I'm talking
Evan
about.
Jamie,
Rachel Wood.
didn't you
You did
say
say that.
earlier
Yes.
that
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other girl in this is the girl from the reboot of When a Stranger Calls?
Maybe.
No,
I don't know.
Jamie had said
I
that
did
before,
that.
but
Yep, it is.
we started
No
recording.
kidding. No
That's
kidding.
nuts. What a small. See, this is like the other thing about this movie that I found fascinating is even right down to the fact that it's directed by Griffin Dunn, that the
Yeah.
Walking Meatloaf from American Werewolf, is what a small world genre cinema
Yes.
is.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And once you're in, you kind of never leave. In the sense that like Dee Wallace somehow found her way into horror and has stayed horror adjacent for her whole damn career. Yeah, yeah, I do. I want a legacy sequel of this. I,
yeah, I think you said it, but I think her name is Evan Rachel Wood, not Rachel Evan Wood. But
yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
she could totally play Nicole Kidman's part or
I
Sandra
mean,
Bullock's part.
there's enough elements here that we're talking about, and with the right casting, I think that this probably would be a very good series. More than a
Yeah, you're
feature.
right.
I don't think I'd want to see another feature of it. I think I'd like to see a series.
She did try it, by the way. Sandra Bullock did produce a pilot that didn't go, but that's 20 years ago. She did that in 2004.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, I think now
yeah,
there would be an appetite for it, pushing, really zeroing in on a number of issues that I think are extremely important, and I
yeah,
think that they would find an audience. And I think you're not just retelling the story, but you're stepping into different aspects of it that resonate with people who either saw this before, or more
yeah,
importantly, people who never have. But I think it's, I think you even maybe even lean back into some of the stuff from the '90s too. Maybe not as the foreground style, but something that maybe you kind of bring forward from that time. It's sort of charming and interesting. Like there's something there that is almost it's a warmth that comes from that. But you do still do sort of vaguely modern. But there's something that's not storybookish exactly, but there's something about it that feels like it's not exactly of our time, and I think that's really good.
yeah. In a series, you could just run around in these characters, and you could hit each of those motifs and have different episodes about each of the things. When we talk about this being a 90s movie, what does that mean to you guys? Like when you pop it on and go, yeah, this is some 90s right here. I think I know what we mean, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Drew, I
mean, the
think you brought
the musical choices are certainly very 90s, with the exception of the Elvis music.
I would be
But
curious to hear the original score that was first with it, because they actually had to swap out. People didn't like the original score, and so they actually changed it from. It was Michael Nyman. He had the original composition, and then it was they said it was too European sounding and obtrusive, is what the audience said. So they replaced it with an Alan Silvestri score,
which sounds to me,
which it's whimsical. It's very
right. It sounds
yeah.
like a movie of this era to me.
Right.
And Drew's talking about the songs that you knock in, like This Kiss, when she's running towards her husband who she's fallen in love with by way of magic. They're playing
Well, you also
This
some
Kiss by
Joni
Faith.
Mitchell, but yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
well, this Kiss is the first thing I think of when you're thinking about the musical choices. Like,
oh my God,
that is a very 90s song.
I'm surprised that we don't hear Sixpence None the Richer in this movie. I mean, honestly,
Oh yeah.
it just
Wow.
feels.
They could have worked out a way to put in Red Right Hand.
Yes. I mean, so there's
That's too dark for this time period, right? For this type of movie.
Well, I mean, Scream.
Yeah,
but
this
that's
movie
what I'm
is.
saying. Although I did not know that Griffin Dunn, sorry to totally derail things here, but it kind of brings me back to the us talking about women and domestic violence and whatnot. Did you know that his sister was Dominique Dunn from Poltergeist?
Oh, I didn't think about that. I honestly never thought about the fact that that would make him Dominic Dunn's son. I did not know that.
No, it's his sister.
Brother.
No, I mean
his sister.
Right, but Dominic, the novelist, then would be both of their father, right? Because Dominique would be his sister. That I didn't know that. By the way,
she's the one that was killed.
I'm learning this right now for the first time.
Strangled to death, and I think that's kind of interesting. That here, after seeing that, and then this guy is obsessed with Nicole Kidman, and she's her character.
I didn't think about that at all. My goodness,
going to strangle her. And it's an obsession, and I kind of wonder if he was working through some
I never thought of that. That's a really interesting observation. Wow.
Sorry, I totally derailed everything, but I was just
no, that's great. I mean, you would have to ask him too. I mean, by the way, she was wonderful. She was on My Sister Sam. She was in Poltergeist. She kicked ass on Family, which I just finished watching. She was so talented, and it is a goddamn tragedy. I mean, it is just it makes you ill. The world should not have been robbed of Dominique Dunn, and that's just awful. But that's real weird. That it seems beyond imagining that he would be directing that, and it wouldn't at least cross his mind.
Oh,
it would have to.
There's no way it would have to. You're talking. It's literally sisters who one of them has a stalker. This man is obsessed with her and being really violent, and specifically the fact that he's constantly strangling her, and he's just like, I want you to be my wife, and then strangling her.
They re-kill him. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
they're like, we kill him, we bring him back, we re-kill him.
It's the kind of thing that if I don't know Griffin Dunn, and if I did, it's the kind of thing that you can't really ask. You would like to hear him comment on it, but it seems so like if he were here, it'd be a tough one to ask. That would be. I
don't think you could ask that off the cuff.
Right.
I've had people do stuff like that to me when I've been on panels at conventions, just point blank kind of catch me off guard, asking me about something traumatic, and
about personal trauma.
Yeah, and I think because of my own openness in talking about that, people sometimes don't think that I can be taken off guard with it. But like, personally, like, look, I'm not saying obviously, my own sibling was not murdered, but they were taken from me in
Yeah.
an early fashion, and like, I would like to put that on him. Like, I think you would have to have like a third party go, is it okay to ask you about this beforehand? But it is fascinating. I mean, like, you do have to I do agree with the assessment that he probably was working through some stuff with this movie.
Yeah, I only he could tell us, because he might go, no, it's not like that at all. There's so many miles between what actually happened and what I regard as, like, who knows what he'd say. But that is, Jamie, thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't make that connection at all, and that's really, really fascinating. And isn't it funny? Like, there's probably a million more in any of these films that we just don't know about. That you don't stumble across it, or the name doesn't pop into your head. Um, hmm. Other '90s elements, by the way, like, to me, there's a, and I'm not a director, so I'll never quite understand this, but there's a look of this film. There's a lighting, there's a
Yeah, the
grain.
color, the long
Yeah.
flowy skirts, which I love. I love the
Oh,
long
the
flowy.
fashion for sure. Absolutely. Every movie of the '90s to me looks great. I just really love the texture of these films. And it's neat to look at it.
There's something to be said, I think, not just visually, but I think maybe, and I think we've talked about this one way or another in the past. I think with
Yeah.
films of this time, I think this might have been. You say what characterizes a '90s film? I think there's where they don't really seem self-conscious.
Mm.
It doesn't quite have the wild, weird abandon of the '80s.
Huh.
When you look at Lost Boys or something like that, but the '90s seem like they're not particularly self-conscious. They turn, I think, at some point, maybe a little bit later in the decade, it begins to change. In the early 2000s, I think we see some there's a
Huh.
self-consciousness to some of this stuff. I don't know why.
Are you
But
talking about in the
like
performances, or in, like, the presentation of the actors?
I think part of it is the presentation, and I
Yeah.
think there's a style
Yeah.
that I think is characterizes pictures from this time.
Mhm.
Maybe not all pictures. I mean, you couldn't go to necessarily like all horror movies, early horror movies of this time, and say, oh, they're not self-conscious. That's like, I don't think that's an argument you can make, but I think that they're just the general pictures of this time. I think there's an element to it that when they feel like they have something in common, I think that's part of it.
Well, that would certainly be true of somebody like a Diane Wiest or a Stockard Channing,
Yeah.
because, like, if you think of, like, Nicole Kidman today, leading us in our weekly ritual at AMC, she does not look like a Diane Wiest. She hasn't allowed herself to become sort of blousy and full figured and ant-like.
And wrinkled.
Right. So to that extent, there's kind of a feeling that you're living in the real world. Although, again, this is a weird fantasy little town that, and that's another piece that I think is part more of rom-coms than anything else. The quaint little seaside town where everybody's in everybody else's business, everybody knows one another.
I feel like it feels more like a softer version of a Stephen King town.
Isn't that the same thing? Because Stephen King,
I guess, yeah.
Stephen King said himself that he was riffing on Peyton Place. Like, so it's all a branch, and Stephen King did his thing, but he's really living in the same universe as rom-coms, because all of that is branching off of soaps. So fascinating.
Well, also just small towns. That's kind of how they are.
Actual small towns, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. No, you're right. Like, if you think of like Salem's Lot, right? Everybody knows one another. There's the jerkwad who cleans up the garbage, and there's the jerkwad who's sleeping around and runs the real estate agency, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that flip side of this town, in a sense, they're the same town. That's cool. So there's another question that I wanted to ask, and then I'll just throw it open to any other topics. But I had here something called intimacy, and I thought this was interesting, which is that there's, I think, more compared, different from a film that we might see today. There's much more, like, just closeness and sisterly intimacy going on. Children and the adults hugging, sleeping together, not in a sexual way, but just in a closeness kind of way that really felt very real in this film, felt very comfortable, but also felt very unusual. I feel like I don't see a lot of this. Did anybody else have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I feel like it's pretty normal, in that they're, I mean, aside from there being witches, and one
Yeah,
of them being possessed by a creepy guy who's into sisters. Apparently, he's like, I'm feeling. At one point, he's like, he possesses Nicole Kidman. And he
yeah,
goes,
gross.
feeling into
Yes,
sisters right now. But other than that, the fact that they're just, they're just really bonded, it's just heightened by the fact that they're like, supernaturally psychic.
yeah,
But having a sister that I have two sisters, one who doesn't live here, but the one who lives here I'm super close to. And all of that feels very natural to me. It feels like
yeah.
how we are.
Yeah, I have four sisters, and I am close with half of them. And
Right.
where like we keep in touch, and if something happens, there's always there is some sort of deeper connection. I think you have to some extent, but I don't know. I feel like I don't not see that intimacy in modern times. I mean, maybe less so since COVID.
Right.
Since our 6 feet of distance that was mandatory for so many years, like that's a little different. But I don't know. I'm not. What in particular do you mean? Just the fact that
It
they're
might,
like,
so maybe it's not fair of me to compare because that's maybe not true at all. The last movie I watched was Expendables 4. It's not a particularly intimate film. Um, so that's but but my point is,
What?
I'm just saying, watching this movie, I was very struck by it, and I can see how if you were 9 or 19 or 90 watching this movie in 1998, I think somebody could go, "Oh, that movie was so tonally inconsistent," and you go, "I don't care. It's my favorite. I love watching them do conga lines and whisper under the covers and have secrets and have a good time. I want to live in this world." I can see somebody saying, "This is one of my favorite movies," because I want to imagine myself being part of this family. And that is not something other than Polite Society, which I saw in the past like 6 months, also had that, which was also about sisters. But other than that, I feel like it's a tone that movies don't set a great deal. At least that's my takeaway there. But you're welcome to
fair.
disagree. But we watch a movie a week, and the only thing that I've seen that was like this was Polite Society. So to me, there's not enough of it. It's pretty cool. Awesome. Okay. Other topics. Feel free, throw something out. I have lost my outline. I've run to the bottom of my outline. My outline is a road, and I've reached the end of the road, and the dune buggy that I am driving has gone off the road of the outline and is plummeting towards the sea because the outline was a cliff, and it's a dune buggy.
Okay, I
Anyway.
think you lost the metaphor as well.
um,
I think the other thing that I want to say about this film is that I think it's really cute how they use how they use the neighborhood, like how this town clearly this is very Salem-y town. I mean, down to the point that one of the moms is called Abigail.
that's
It's
right.
like very much obviously generations of women, and these aunties apparently are very old because they don't age and we don't know how long they've been around. But so the generations of women or of people in the town have watched these women in this family and just been like on the outside and been like, they're weird, they're witches, they're creepy. And then to have this particular generation finally be invited in, and all this time they've really just wanted to be part of it. Like they've been on the outside going,
Yeah.
"Oh, they're witch," and then they're all kind of like, "But we kind of want to check that out and see what that's like." So I kind of love that they get invited in and they're all like, "Yes, we're all," and like literally one of them says, "Sally finally came out when she says, 'Yes, I'm a
Yes.
witch.'" So it's this whole idea of like, okay, now that you've included us, we can accept you, and now you can be all the things. Like you can be accepted and be cool and be popular and be loved and also be you, which I think
Huh.
is great. Actually, now that as I'm saying that out loud, I'm realizing it's also kind of an LGBTQ story, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Not just her being coming out, but the whole thing of like be you and be accepted at the same time, and that's awesome. And then the fact that they can even at the end show, like people are excited to see them fly and all that. I just
Right.
think that's really sweet. So
I
I
love
dig
the
that.
curtain call on
Yeah.
the roof with the at Halloween. That was amazing. That gave it a very Halloween
Well,
special.
because she actually said, to Aiden Quinn, she's like, yeah, and if you come in Halloween, you can see us fly off the roof. So they actually do it. It's hilarious.
Yes, that was that was beautiful. And it gives you a feeling of things moving forward as well, because she was kidding at that point, but now that they are beloved by the community, they actually are doing that. Do you think that the spell is broken? The curse? Well, is Aiden Quinn gonna get hit by a truck? Like,
That's what I always
Good
wondered.
question. I hope that's broken. I think it's broken. I think it's broken because I think when they released Nicole Kidman, or when they got banished the Jimmy, they also kind of released Maria with the whole like somehow there was a connection with Maria, and there was like this whole thing that
I don't
happened.
think
I
I
think they
don't
broke
think the
the
curse
curse.
is broken. I
Oh.
think Aiden Quinn is toast. They didn't spend near enough time on that in the second half of the movie. The closest thing they come to a resolution is him saying, curses only have power if you don't believe in them, or if you believe in them." And I'm like, tell that to her first husband, motherfucker. Like
I know, right?
He probably didn't even know that he was cursed. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Boy,
I
that
think he's toast.
Yeah. They don't answer it, so we don't know. The logic of Hollywood tells us that he's gonna make it just cause. But you're right that there's no real good reason to think so. So good question. That's why we need a legacy sequel. Even if it's a series that can answer that question for us. Aiden Quinn is still with us, so he could certainly play the role. Boy, that'd be neat. Thank you, Julia, by the way. That was cool. All right. Well, I think that more or less gets us through most of the topics here, unless somebody wanted to throw something out.
Those
And
are
if
my
not,
final thoughts too, so you can just move past me for that.
okay. All right. Well, then that leaves us with Drew, Amy, and Jamie. Drew, why did I say that? Drew, Adam, and Jamie.
Wait, Amy. Do we add an Amy?
There's no. There's an Amy arriving on the wind. All right, Drew. Final thoughts. Practical
I don't
magic.
think I was first. It was Julia.
It was
first.
Julia.
No, but I
Right.
just said I'm not going to do that. I just had that was my final thoughts.
Right.
So we can go.
Fun movie, great discussion. Good. Also, just like Cobweb last week, definitely gives you the Halloween feels, even though it's only technically Halloween in the very final bit of the movie. But good time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned, Drew, that to bring us back to like this Halloween movie. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about it. It really is. It's a Halloween movie of a particular time. Even though I think that, like many of us here, my roots go deep into more traditional horror, and I tend to think even when I watch particular pictures around Halloween, they usually are pretty much a range of horror pictures. And a certain amount of Eurotrash that makes its way in, but that's another story. But I think because seeing this movie now, it makes me think this should be a film that goes on rotation. Because I think it's one that is incredibly accessible. I think it's one that, particularly people who maybe didn't see it in the 90s, I think there's something for everyone in a way in this movie. And this may have been what was intended back in the 90s, but I think there are certain things that draw you into this movie. And I think that because we're looking back on these actors now who were operating then, and we know them now. There's I think there's a curiosity. There's something interesting. It's a world you want to live in. There are a lot of touchstones in it. I think it becomes the onboarding Halloween movie kind of October. I think it should be a film that stays on people's rotation. I do think that, all kidding aside, there probably is a real opportunity to revisit this franchise as something and bring about a bunch of other themes that have more resonance now, but still rooted in that sense of style and the feeling of this. So I think it's great. I'm rather glad that I got a chance to see it because I really had skipped over this this picture of the '90s. So thanks for that.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Jamie, what about you? Final thoughts on Practical Magic?
I always have like fond memories of this movie, and it's such a little time capsule. I really enjoy it, but I think it's something that is, like Adam says, very accessible. It's a great watch for young adults, as well as people of all ages. But
Mm.
it has its fair share of problems, but it also has a lot of really interesting takes on the the dichotomy of female relationships, and it's just a really great. I don't know. I enjoy it. I like this movie. I would recommend it.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm so happy that we watched this. It was really fun to sort of revisit this era, and especially of Sandra Bullock's body of work, because this is the same, like Hope Floats and Practical Magic came out roughly the same time, and it's just, this is the point when she was just kind of ruling these rom-coms. So
And Miss
it's
Congeniality, I think, was somewhere around
Yep.
there
I
too.
yeah, so I mean, she was the boss. I mean, she's still a boss, but she was the boss at this point, and it's cool. I'm really glad that we explored this, and I'm glad that you guys were there to share all of it. All right, let's get endorsements. Whatever you've been watching, listening to, recommending, any old way. And it's Julia, Drew, Adam, Jamie, and then I'll go. So Julia, do you have any endorsements? What do you got?
Well, we finally got around to watching a couple things that have kind of been around. One is Jury Duty. Is that on Amazon Freevee? Is that what that was on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's so good. It really was. I found it hilarious and fun. It's like a mockumentary, and everybody is an actor except for one person who doesn't realize that he's the only person who's not an actor. It's just hilarious. I thought it was really really funny. And then we've been watching Shrinking with Harrison Ford and Jason Segel, and we haven't finished that one yet, but that's also really great and interesting. And it's a little odd how everybody in that show has these relationships with each other that are completely independent of each other. So it feels very incestuous to me, where it's like, oh, and we're best friends, and y'all, and oh, and we're coworkers, and we're, and I'm your third, and it's just like all these people. I'm like, what? Why are you guys talking? But anyway, but it is fun, and it's very well acted as well. So those I would recommend.
Excellent. Drew, do you have anything to recommend?
I have been enjoying a new podcast that I discovered through. So I guess this is kind of a joint thing, because I discovered this podcast, Bigfoot Collectors Club, through the Halloween episode of a podcast I already listened to called Tooth and Claw, which is about animal attacks. And Tooth and Claw is great because I get to indulge in my general hatred of the human race by hearing stories about them being maimed by animals. Haha, revenge by the animal kingdom. But they had two of the guys on their Halloween special was about Bigfoot attacks, and they had these two guys on that are the hosts of the Bigfoot Collectors Club. Bigfoot Collectors Club is mostly a cryptozoology podcast, although it does delve into some general esoterica kind of things. Like the episode I just finished on Friday was all about Elvis sightings back in the 80s. So if you are into not only monsters but general weirdness, I think that you would find a lot of favor through that. But also, I really enjoyed there's a game they play with their guests sometimes called Bullshit or True, and there's no way of winning it. It's just a way of exploring the things that people believe and don't believe in it. So like they'll throw out something like, for example, you would say UFOs, and somebody would, the person they're quizzing would be say bullshit if they don't believe in it, or true if they don't believe, or if they do believe in it.
Yeah.
So Jason, if I were to say demons, you would say
bullshit.
If I were to say Sandra Bullock, you would say true. See, and it's just a way of getting to know people and getting to know people's tastes and belief systems and things of that nature. And I've been playing it off and on with friends over the last week, and it's been kind of
that sounds
fun.
super
I
fun.
want to know who would call bullshit on Sandra Bullock, because I'll fight them.
Well, I just threw that out because I figured that was something that Jason
it's impossible to imagine.
did
He knows
believe in.
Jason believes in Sandra Bullock.
I as far as I know, Jason's genuinely skeptical about most things. So I would be surprised if he said if he believed in anything paranormal. Although the thing that I have found is that most people, even the most skeptical among us, seem to believe in aliens. So,
yeah, I think
although
most
I guess
people believe in aliens. The question, I think, that where people differ is whether they've come to visit us or not.
I am skeptical that they're probing us up the butt, but
the other thing, anybody can say they're skeptical of demons, for instance, but nevertheless, like, I'm skeptical of demons. But if you say, okay, will you go spend the night in a spooky haunted house? I might for like money, but I'll be scared, and I got no reason to be scared if I don't believe in this stuff.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
that goes back to the Alfred Hitchcock quote of I don't believe in ghosts, but I am afraid of them. Which
Right.
I think is I always thought is a really
wonderful
really
line.
good. Yeah. I think, what I think is interesting is, like, some people are all over the place. Like, I've on some of the episodes of this show, there was one point where I forget who they were quizzing, but they said werewolves, and he said true, but then they immediately after said vampires, and he said bullshit. So I want to know what the dividing line is there. Why a werewolf seems more plausible to this person than a vampire. I legitimately want to know.
It's probably the immortality part.
Maybe,
Like
or maybe the fact that it's a walking corpse. I don't know. This isn't even coming from a belittling place. I'm just fascinated by the things that people believe in or don't believe in, because I think we live in a society that I think could do, if we could take this attitude of amusement and interest at people's differing beliefs, instead of looking at it as this divisive thing, which is kind of the sort of tribalism that we've all fallen into. I really do think that bullshit or true could help us find our way back to being a healthier society. So long way around. Bigfoot Collectors Club, great podcast. Check it out. And by
Bigfoot, bullshit or true?
True.
Awesome.
True.
Love it.
With the caveat, though, that I generally think that there are a lot of, I think it's an animal. I think there are a lot of animals that we don't know of.
Loch Ness Monster. Yep.
I don't know if I believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but like
Really?
Jason, I believe if it exists, it's probably an eel. I don't think it's a plesiosaur. Like, I'm apologizing to Scott from Monster Movie Happy Hour. I think he would be so disappointed for me to say that. Here's my thing. Just like how Jason wouldn't stay the night in a haunted house, the guys that go scuba diving in Loch Ness are morons. Because while I'm on the fence about whether Nessie is a real thing or not, I don't want to be its lunch on the off chance that there is something in the lake. So,
Thank you. That's
Bigfoot
awesome.
Collectors Club. Check it out.
Love it. Jay, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, Jason.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. We're all gonna be playing bullshit or true for the next like 6 months of our lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Goal achieved.
That's fantastic. Adam, I'm probably going to see you for dinner tomorrow night. We'll have to play this a lot.
That's the lead in. Are you kidding? I can't wait. We're gonna start a fist fight in that place. I'm positive.
Adam, what are your recommendations?
I'm captivated by Drew's. I don't know if I could follow up. I only have the new season of Only Murders in the Building, which is
So good.
I think it's great. So I'm just going to leave it at that and not call bullshit. So I think
starring America's sweetheart Paul Rudd.
That's
Well,
right.
starring everybody,
And
starring Meryl
Meryl
Streep. It
Yeah.
had Matthew
Obviously.
Broderick showed up.
Andrea Martin in a
Andrea
fantastic
Martin,
role.
and
Everybody.
then and
Yeah.
this last episode was who was the big guest on this last episode? It was I guess it was Meryl Streep again.
Yeah.
There's somebody
Yeah.
else. I'm trying to remember who it was now. Anyway, it's been really fun.
It's been so good. I love the music that plays when there's this concept where you basically just get stage fright to the point where your mind goes blank and you enter something that Steve Martin's character calls the white room, where you're just sort of floating in space and forget where you are.
He always does something horrible when that happens.
Right. But they play this really funky like 1960s lounge music in there, and it's so bizarre to see, to hear this Club Penguin music playing and Steve Martin just sort of floating in space. It's wonderful. Okay, thank you for that, Adam. Jamie, what about you? What do you got for us?
Well, I was kind of taken with No One Will Save You, that's streaming on Hulu right now. It's a sci-fi, like psychological thriller.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. I thought it was really good.
I haven't seen it, so I'm
I
excited
was
to hear that.
scared just from the trailers. I was like, oh, that looks scary. And it's almost completely without dialogue. There's only like 2 words spoken throughout the whole movie, or 3 words. But basically it's about this woman who's kind of ostracized, or she's on the outside of her town, and you see her mom has died, and she's living alone in this big old house, but she seems really like happy there, and until she has to be around people. And then her house is suddenly broken into by aliens. And it's a whole like alien invasion thing. Yeah, it's really good. Like I thought it was like, I was very much on the edge of my seat for most of the movie, and you're cheering her on this whole time, but you're also like, is she gonna die? Because no one will save you. And I don't know, it's really good, and the ending is very weird and interesting, and I can't wait to hear some other people's takes on it. So I'm looking for it. Just came out like 2 days ago, so it's definitely worth the watch if you're looking for something kind of scary, but and are in the mood for some aliens after all this news about the aliens in Mexico this week.
Well, that was a nice drop, because I did not notice that. I've been so obsessed with the
the alien mummies. That says a lot about our news cycle, is that they can examine supposedly alien mummies through the Mexican Congress, and almost nobody cares.
You're so right. That's fascinating. Okay, I'm properly chastised. I need to find out about that. So
No One Will Save You would be, if we ever did an alien abduction retrospective, No One Will Save You would definitely be a good addition to that. Like, it is really, really well done. Wish it would have gotten a theatrical release. Like, I mean, while I applaud that streaming has allowed for, like as Jamie said, there's like almost no dialogue in the movie, so that's kind of risky. So I could see why they went direct to streaming with it, and I applaud that these sort of chancier movies are going direct to streaming. I do think it would be a beautiful movie to see on the big screen.
Yeah,
that's excellent. Thank you very much. All right, I have 2 endorsements. One is Midnight Margaritas. I just think that's a great idea. So that's the other game.
That also should be the name of your soft rock band.
Yes.
Start.
Oh, you are so right. You're right. You know, right up there
R.I.P.
with Catalina Breeze. Yes. That's fantastic. Yeah, Midnight Margaritas. My other endorsement is Mark of the Witch, also known as The Witch, not to be confused with the Witch movie that came out like 5 years ago. Mark
I'm
of
so
the
glad
Witch.
you didn't say Expendables 4 because I was gonna have to get mad at you.
Right. No, Expendables 4, not everything that you might imagine it would be.
No, it actually is, which is the problem. Anyway, go ahead. Talk about your actual endorsement.
Mark of the Witch. Mark of the Witch. We actually did an informal lean back episode on it, Tony and I, like during the pandemic when we were doing 2 episodes a week. Mark of the Witch is 1969/1970 release film, released on the cusp there. Filmed probably the only witchcraft movie filmed at Southern Methodist University, and it's about a co-ed who is possessed by the spirit of a witch who was hanged a long time ago and comes back in order to do witchy stuff, and she starts macking on her lecherous professor, and it's great. I mean, it's 1969. It's really neat to see all the cars and the kids hanging out in the student union and everything that you can think of when you're picturing that while I'm talking about it. That's what it's like. I love this movie. It's no Expendables 4 when it comes to quality, but it is I really recommend this. So, and I'm not even being sarcastic. I really like Mark of the Witch. So that's my recommendation. All right, and that brings us to the end. I'm so thankful. Jamie and Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody,
It was great having you.
It's so great to hear all of you. I feel like I've had this wonderful dinner party that I got to go to and hang out, and it was really cool. We wish Tony the best.
What did we eat?
I mean, ribs, man.
Midnight Margaritas.
Yeah.
True. No,
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah. True and bullshit. Yes. So Tony's at Fantastic Fest. We'll have him back soon, probably next week. So
It says a lot that it took 2 people to replace Tony.
I know.
I don't know if we'll be able to live with when he learns that his ego will be just like so huge.
Yes.
That
will he feel bad that like he's like, I actually take up that much space on the phone?
I think probably more what you said.
Tony's such a sweetheart that's probably true. But no, it's by the way, there's another movie I want to try to get watched this week while I'm traveling called Witchcraft 70, which has nothing to do with Mark of the Witch 69. Witchcraft 70 is a Mondo film. It's like a documentary about witches that has this amazing sleazy Italian director and soundtrack, and I'm like, this sounds like my kind of movie, so I'm definitely gonna watch that. All right, everybody, be kind to one another. We cannot wait to talk to you all again. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.